Well, let's start the lecture now. Today we'll talk about love, what love is in general, where it comes from, how it works in human consciousness, and why we wait for it so much and can't find it. What's the problem? Love is the energy of God. People reflect the energy of love from God. They are like a mirror. They cannot have the energy of love within themselves. They only reflect it. It's interesting to know that a woman has the ability to accumulate this energy within herself, and a man, he is capable of conquering it, proving that he is worthy. So men and women have different relationships with this energy of love. God gives the energy of love to a woman. For example, a woman is beautiful. Any woman can be beautiful, even at a very advanced age, if she has the right attitude towards people. Beauty just means fullness. It's like, for example, a battery can be charged or discharged, or an accumulator can be charged. When a woman's battery is charged, she's beautiful. When discharged, she's not beautiful, but the ability to be beautiful always remains with women throughout their lives. A man retains the ability to overcome fate, to be a winner, but when he's discharged, he becomes defeated, and when he's charged, he becomes a winner. That's how it changes. A man has his own battery, and a woman has hers. When a woman sees a winner in front of her, she loves him, she likes such a person. When she sees a defeated person, she experiences suffering from him. When a man sees a charged woman, he experiences happiness from her. When he sees a discharged one, he experiences suffering. When a woman is discharged, it doesn't mean that a man feels nothing at all. A man next to a discharged woman experiences suffering, and with a fulfilled woman, he experiences happiness. A woman experiences happiness with a charged man. With a discharged one, she experiences suffering. When people come together, they do it at the peak of their fulfillment. Otherwise, a family simply won't be created, and this peak of fulfillment causes this harmony. This is a mutual feeling because people always come together according to fate, and a very easy connection always arises between their hearts. And this connection causes the interaction of these energies. A person accumulated the power of relationships with people. A man tried to be strong, to develop himself as a person. A woman tried to help everyone, take care of everyone, and they accumulated this strength, men and women. And from the moment they met, this discharge began, and it can occur for a long time. This is called infatuation, and people really confuse it with love. They think that this discharge should happen all their life, that this will last all their life. And people often in their dreams think, well, why was this so short for me? Why are others happy all their lives, so satisfied with each other? It's interesting where you've seen such people. All people are first infatuated with each other, and then you really need to perform a feat in your heart for the relationship to start improving again. You really need to make efforts, and efforts should be in your relationship with God first of all, because a close person will never charge your battery, never. Even, let's say, a woman needs more relationships with women in order to charge her batteries, but relationships with a husband will never charge a woman's battery. She will only spend her energy on her husband and will only get tired of him. A husband will also never be able to charge his battery from his wife. Never in his life. He will only get tired of her. To give voluntarily my strength, first I have to accept the person. And my battery has to be charged. This is the condition. I give my strength voluntarily to the person. Then in this case, gratitude arises in them. This gratitude is also expressed voluntarily. Gratitude is a voluntary thing, and love comes through it. The first stage of possibility to establish family relationships is called acceptance. It's simply impossible to accept a close person without prayer, without spiritual practice, without nature, without love for people. So accepting a close person means swallowing their shortcomings. As the woman said, why should I humiliate myself before him? It's not humiliation, it's asceticism practice. For example, I practiced yoga for 2 hours today, performing the stationary position of the body together with a prayer in order to have the strength to give a lecture. Is this humiliation or not? No, I did all this voluntarily and I felt strength as a result. This strength will now give you the opportunity to be filled. It's not humiliating if I fill myself up with strength and voluntarily give it to a loved one. How to give strength to a wife? You need to calmly and firmly endure her emotions. If a woman opens up to her husband, what happens? She begins to pour out her emotions, and always negative ones first, and only then positive ones. If a woman opens up to her husband, she will always first scold him or complain to him, and this is also asceticism practice for him. She thinks that she's speaking well and kindly, just complaining, but when she complains, she sucks strength from him, discharges his battery at this time. It becomes difficult for him because of this. He endures all this. And he must endure this first emotional wave that comes from his wife, and then try to always behave kindly with her, knowing that she is his friend. Well, it's understandable that on the outside it's not manifested in any way that she's a friend, Because people burden each other with their own fate. That means my loved one will torment me according to my fate. This is the biggest secret. He will torment me as much as I'm destined to by fate. This is very difficult to understand. And there's no one else through whom my destiny can act. No one else will give me my fate except for my loved ones. Therefore, there's still some bitter taste in the relationships at first, and then, if you accept the loved one, harmony begins to appear. To accept, you need to have strength. A weak person will never accept a loved one. The dream that lives in our hearts, our dream of a happy family life, of love, of happiness, it's just an illusion. In reality, true happiness only comes to those who overcome their fate with their inner strength, not to those who are lucky. It seems as if they found a person with whom the infatuation would last forever. This never happens, my dears. It simply never happens. Moreover, I can say that if you strongly love a person, if you're head over heels in love, that person won't even have the physical ability to be near you. Experiencing intense happiness from someone depletes a person. Young people have hearts that work differently. They are very pure, naive in relationships. There is quite a strong reciprocity in relationships. With age, a person wants love, but their understanding of love has already been befouled by selfish relationships with a close person. So if you strongly fall in love with someone as you get older, they start to experience the opposite feeling. A feeling as if it's difficult for me to be near this person. With age, the possibility of intense feelings becomes almost excluded from life. You've noticed that if you strongly fall in love with someone, they say, I don't want to build a relationship with you. Or if someone strongly loves you, you think, no, I don't want this, I don't need it. This person is not for me. Why? Because human love is selfish by nature, and the older we get, the more selfishness there is in it. Love is a divine feeling. It is given by God to a person. When two people see each other, God reveals to them the power of love. He shows the purest and brightest in each other. When a person loves someone, they see purity in their beloved. They see the brightest, purest. They see what's real. Once a disciple asked a priest, how can I maintain purity and love in my relationship with my wife for life? The priest replied, you must remember what you saw, what you felt, when you saw the person for the first time, when you fell in love with them. Remember the feeling you experienced for the first time and always recall this feeling in your relationship. Then you will be able to be happy with this person for life. Everything you saw and felt from them afterwards is your own fate reflected from this person. You've noticed that if you start living with a new person, you behave differently with them, not like in your previous relationships. You become a different person in the relationship. Why does this happen? Because they are different. A different person is meant for something different. God connects people who can give each other their fate, both good and bad. At first, when a person falls in love, they feel that there will be many good days in my fate. They only see the good. They don't see that there will be many bad days too, which is also inevitable. What happens first? First, in a faraway kingdom, in a distant land, they found a princess. A girl is always a princess. A guy is always a prince. Then they killed the evil sorcerer. They finally meet. What's next? Then the fairy tale ends. They began to live together and prosper. That's the end of the tale, and whoever listened is a good fellow. Nothing is told about what happens next. Why? Because the fairy tale ends, my dear friends. Life begins, and life is a serious thing. I had a seminar about loneliness. What do you think is the very first reason for loneliness? What is it? The very first and main reason for loneliness and also for divorces is that people in their hearts strongly believe in a fairy tale. They think that this fairy tale should last forever. They think that being in love is the essence of what they want from a relationship. This is a poison that destroys a person's life. God forbid they see from someone the infatuation they were waiting for, dreaming of, this is my person with whom I should live. People strongly imagine things when they experience this feeling. One girl told me, Dr. Torsunov, judge for yourself. I believe you. I listen to your lectures. I have a husband and 2 children. He is given to me in this life. I met a man. I was his wife for many lifetimes in a row. And who should I live with? With my current husband, with whom I'm only in this life, or with my eternal husband? Who should I live with? I say, how do you know that this is your eternal husband? She says, we have a very strong feeling, Dr. Torsunov. A very strong feeling between us. I say, wonderful. You made such a conclusion because of this? People even invent very deep philosophical justifications based on lectures. If we listen to lectures, we leave our loved ones based on these lectures. Let's say, the husband drinks. I say, you just need to discipline him. Sometimes you can live separately. She says, you said in the lecture that we should leave if they drink. I never said that. You've made that up yourself. People even want to use lectures to do foolish things. The lecture talks about what will happen next, but people don't hear that part anymore. As one Muslim priest says, "What are you doing? Why are you drinking, cheating on your wife?" The man replies, "But the Quran says drink, have fun, be merry." The priest says, "Well, it also says then you'll go to hell." The man replies, "It's impossible to learn the whole Quran." He only remembered drink, have fun, be merry, but he already forgot what comes after. So rule number 1 is the rule of the beginning and end of living together. Remember that the fairy tale will necessarily repeat in the end if you live your life correctly and build relationships correctly. The same thing will happen in the end, but with the help of your strength. This will be your reward. Silver weddings, an unextinguished fire. Silver weddings, a heartfelt conversation. Why do you live together with a loved one? Do you have heartfelt conversations with them? Do you have conversations with them not about children, not about work, not about the apartment, but conversations about the meaning of life, about wisdom, purity? You don't have to answer me now. Answer to yourself. Most of you will answer like this. Dr. Torsunov, I hardly have any conversations about family. We just work together, have sex, and watch TV. Then you wonder, why did he suddenly leave me? Because there was nothing close between you. Love is not sex and not enjoying each other. Love is not just living together. Love begins with taking care of a loved one, opening your heart to them and opening their heart. Many people don't even know what's happening with their loved one. For example, upstairs, 2 men are in terrible tension, and their women don't even know it. She says, "Why is my husband behaving like this?" He was having a very hard time, that's why he's behaving this way. If only she knew. And you can only know a person's heart if you accept them. If you don't accept a person, you won't know what state they're in. There are cases when a child stops studying at school. One can't study. I had such a real case. A child stopped studying at school. The reason was simply tension, a bad astrological period, and the child almost went crazy. Can you imagine? The parents sought help in time and understood this, but the teachers still didn't understand. They still forced that child to study. The parents decided to give the child a year off from school. As a result, the child started studying normally again because the bad period had passed. But the parents didn't see the bad period because they didn't need the child, they needed good grades. When a man sees a woman's beauty, he doesn't see the person. She says, "You only need my beauty. You don't need me." This is 100% true. This is our love. Similarly, you women need money from a man, his protection, care, but you don't need him as a person. You don't even see him. You don't see his state. You don't see what's happening to him. This is the reality of life. This is how we love. This is our love. It's actually a deeply selfish feeling that we have for each other. We are sure that this is love. Love means that a person should become self-sufficient. To love, one must feel happiness from relationships with nature, with people, with God. Only when the person experiences this happiness can one give it to a loved one. The first thing one can do for a loved one while giving their love is to accept the character of their close person. This is the first stage of love called acceptance. I'm already going home not to argue. I feel fine at home because I've accepted my loved one, accepted their character. I rest at home. I don't argue. I've accepted all their character flaws. A young man came to his mentor and said, "Listen, I've already accepted this and that in my wife, and I don't need anything from her anymore. I've overcome this and that in myself. Maybe I should go to a monastery?" He sincerely asks his mentor. The mentor says, "You don't need to go to a monastery because only now your happy life will begin. If you've accepted everything from your loved one and you don't need anything from her, you just need to start caring for her. And that's it. You become a happy person." All arguments arise for only one reason. You need something from your loved one. You're confusing your close person with someone else. Only God can give so much. Can a man thank you as much as you invested in preparing dinner for him? Can he thank you just as strongly or not? Never, it's impossible. Or let's say a man worked all month and gave you money. Can you thank him as strongly for this feat he accomplished? Surely no. Why? Because we are woven this way. We cannot give full reciprocity. We are selfish by nature. You shouldn't expect too much from a person. You have to invest. In relationships with nature, you get health. In relationships with people, you get social strength, means for living, social status, happiness, fulfilling work, everything you need for life. You invest in a relationship with God, you get self-sufficiency, satisfaction, inner strength. I prayed today and felt inner strength. Such a victorious strength arose inside. I'm sharing with you my impressions from prayer. You need to detach from your loved one. Let's say people get married. What happens? A short circuit occurs. They start enjoying each other. They forget about parents, friends. They immerse themselves in each other. This immersion happens because they experience a lot of happiness. Their batteries keep discharging. Then when they discharge further, what happens? They start experiencing a lot of suffering from each other. They say, "I'm tired of you already. Leave me alone." Happiness no longer comes from them. The battery is dead. And what to do next? They start to nag each other. Why? Because I'm waiting for happiness from you. Where's the happiness? I gave you my life. Give me happiness. But there's no happiness. People can't give each other so much happiness. The scriptures say that people should turn away from each other in family life and start caring for everyone around. Then they find happiness in relationships with people. To be happy, you need to give yourself, care for everyone. Then people feel good with each other. Because your life has turned away from the selfish expectation of happiness from a loved one. It has turned to helping everyone around. This is how family life should be built. A person should prepare food and treat everyone. I even know examples of such people here who do this. Then a person becomes happy, cheerful, and feels a lot of happiness because they care for everyone around them. Even simply feeding animals on the street brings happiness, not to mention inviting friends home. You can even feed your neighbors, you know? Then there will be happiness in the neighborhood if you feed your neighbors. It's difficult at first. They're complete strangers. But if you feed them a little, they will then smile at you all the time. They will love you. Even if you feed a cat once on the street, it will always love you. It will see you and immediately be happy. This is how people react to love. All animals and even birds will be happy to see you. But we don't have time. They say, "Dr. Torsunov, I don't have time for this." It's not that you don't have time, you lack knowledge and desire. When a person goes on a date, they somehow always find time. But you have no time for this because there's no desire, no necessity. Some detective show on TV you always want to watch because it excites your emotions. Such an artificial way of getting happiness. You know, when a swamp is stagnant, you can stir it a little, and it seems like life has started. But again, there's a stench. Everything's covered with algae. This is similar to watching TV. People are not doing anything during this time, not giving anything to anyone, just stirring the swamp a little and thinking that everything's great now. You shouldn't stir the swamp. You need to really fill yourself up. Today I was offered a ride to the lecture. I said, "I'll walk." Why? Because I wanted to fill myself up, just to breathe fresh air and get filled up. Nature gives life to a person when you love nature. A person should try to somehow overcome their fate. To do this, one needs to understand how the energy of love works. Pure, bright, selfless love can only exist in a relationship with God. We generally don't know what a relationship with God means. This relationship is built only through relationships with those who serve God. To understand what a relationship with God is, one needs to find their faith, or better yet, keep the one they had. Go to a temple, observe spiritual services, listen to spiritual hymns, and try to understand why people do all this. When you understand this, your heart will be filled with purity, joy, and depth. Through other people's service to God, we can feel God. There's no other way directly. It's impossible. It would be too much honor for us. We are not worthy. It's very important to do this in your life. In this case, you will at least understand what true love is. When you look into the eyes of a person who experiences love, you can understand what love is. There's no other way. People sincerely think, that love means sex, sleeping together. This is love for them. This is a way to waste love. You need to drink a little water. Take some water, drink it. Drink and press your left hand's index finger like this. Press the index finger of your left hand hard. Press hard on the sides and your cough will go away. At first it seems everything will be fine. Time retreats when a person is happy. This is a fact. If a person exchanges happiness, bad fate retreats. If a person is happy and gives happiness to others, bad fate retreats. But we wait for this passively. We think, when will someone give it to me? I'm here. I'm so good. Give me love. A person waits, thinking that they just need to find someone in life from whom happiness will start to flow, and immediately bad life retreats. It's a fact, 100% true. If a person is happy, all bad things retreat. Indeed, bad fate means the energy of suffering or heavy energy of time, while good fate means the energy of happiness. But this should not be received passively. A person should help people, force themselves to do it. One should take care of nature, and rejoicing in nature a person receives health, or one should serve God. Do something in the temple, take care of everyone, feed the poor, give means to the temple, pray, worship. Then a person becomes happy. They don't wait for happiness to be given to them, but become happy themselves. This is the correct position to live, to become happy yourself. When a person has strength, they are truly capable of many things. First, strength is needed. If a person has no strength, They cannot do all this. We need strength. First, a person must become strong. To strongly influence a person, strength is needed. You'll say, this can't be done with my person. My case is completely different. It's exactly about your case. The first step towards a relationship is accepting the person. If you can't accept them, there won't be a first step. Acceptance is very difficult because the thread between you has already been clogged. Let's say a person doesn't brush their teeth, their breath starts to stink. Relationships also need to be cleansed, otherwise they stink. You don't even want to look at your close person. You need to understand that relationships are cleansed with the heart first. If you can't even talk to each other, you don't have the strength to live together, then recharge your battery. This is the first thing to do. A person should distance themselves from the relationship. Distance doesn't mean not seeing, not hearing, not looking, living separately. Distance means not expecting anything from the person. Learn to expect from someone else. It doesn't mean from another man, but from spiritual life, from God, from the temple, from people, friends. Men have male friends, women have female friends. Not women with male friends and men with female friends, but women with female friends and men with male friends. That's who you should expect from. A woman is filled by relationships with women. A man by relationships with men. When a woman is filled by another man, it's incorrect. It destroys the family. Let's say you came to some man to complain, and it's so pleasant to talk to him. He's so nice, unlike your husband. This means you're bringing poison into your family. You're filling yourself with poison. The Vedas say that if a snake drinks milk, it also gets filled, but it accumulates poison from this. Let's say you decided to give milk to a snake. It drinks and drinks milk. It loves milk. Did you know that? Snakes love to drink milk, but then this milk turns into poison. You'll end up bitten by them. It's the same when a woman communicates with another man about her life. She talks to him. My husband is like this. She calls it, I have a friend. We have pure, bright relationships with him, she says. Remember, between a man and a woman, if they are not brother and sister, there can't be pure and bright relationships. There can't be pure, bright relationships. If you start opening your heart to another man, it means poison is accumulating in your life. He will never say anything good about your husband. You should only communicate with someone who will say good things about your husband. This is called an elder, like a father. A woman can communicate with someone who is like a father to her, who doesn't have designs on her and doesn't look at her with lust. But it's better for a woman to communicate with women and get strength from female friends, to recover in relationships with female friends. And if there are no female friends, then there's no one to communicate with and no one to recover with. Then, at least go to nature, take care of birds, dogs, and serve in a temple. At least start with this. Finding friends is harder. It's easiest to get strength from nature. If you don't have the opportunity, at least walk outside, feed the birds. Next, people will appear. It's easier to make friends with people, and it's hardest to build a relationship with God. This also gives the best result in recharging your battery. A relationship with God gives the best result. When I just arrived, they were singing a song here. This song was written by the Skolov couple. They sing many different songs at our festival. These songs are mostly very much in line with my lectures. To understand what it means to be filled with God, you need to listen to those who love God. Yesterday, a woman approached me and started telling me how badly her son treats her. I could feel that she was telling me this with her last strength. If you look deep, very deep into the reason why he treats her so badly, the reason is this. When she gave birth to him, she strongly believed in him. She believed, this is my happiness, my child. She started to believe in him, live for him, not understanding that this is the trap. Living for a child means ruining this person, making them selfish, heartless. One should live for God and the child should be disciplined. One should restrain their feelings towards the child, not spoil them. Make sure they don't become proud in their relationship with their mother. What happened in this case? Why is she suffering so much? She instilled pride in him through her belief in the child. People don't know what faith is. They simply accept what they have. Assume a woman loves a man, believing in him. If she believes in him, what happens next? To love, to discipline, to live with a person, understanding that God gave him to you, that's one option. But believing, that's another option. Which option? If I believe in someone, except for holy people who don't take your faith personally, they consider it a relationship with God. But if I believe in a person, there's only one result. As one song says, spring of love is awaited only once, just once. Gardens bloom in our souls, only once. Why only once? The second time it's impossible to believe in a person like that. You'll have to believe in God then, not in a person. And again, what is the stress of separation? It's again belief in a person. Why can't a person forget? Who among you can't forget your close person who has left? This is faith in a person, always. Remember this. Now you need to believe in God in order for your heart to calm down again, to come to your senses. You believe in a person, deify them. You think, why did my loved one leave me? Everything was fine between us. Only because you believed in them. The energy of faith destroys relationships because a person can't withstand it. One becomes proud because of it. You shouldn't believe in a person. You should only believe in God, and you should take care of people. These are completely different things. When you care for someone, even if they leave, you don't suffer much from it. You feel sorry, of course, there's separation, but there's no breakdown. Separation is one thing, a broken life is another. You have no strength, you can't live, you can't even sleep. Faith is an amazing feeling that strongly recharges a person's batteries. And if one believes in the wrong thing, it strongly drains their batteries. If you believe in a mortgage, you'll drain your batteries. Believe in your husband, in your wife, in your children. You'll drain your batteries and end up in stress sooner or later. If you believe in God, you'll always be charging. Believe in nature, you'll always be charging. Believe in friends, in the purity of friends, you'll always be charging. But friends need to be tested first. True friends are tested in times of trouble. If you have some kind of trouble, it has one good benefit. Everywhere and everything there's only harm, but in trouble there's one benefit. Do you know what it is? You'll find out who your true friends are. Everyone else will abandon you, but the real ones will stay. It will be unexpected for you. Those you didn't know were true friends will stay, and those you thought were true will leave. Most often it happens this way. Of course, it also happens that the real ones stay. But for me, for example, it was the opposite. When there was trouble, all those I thought would stay, they all left me. There were people I didn't value much. They, on the contrary, became closer and helped. It was amazing. So let's deal with love. The first and most dangerous thing that can happen to a person is a wrong idea about love. We need to understand that infatuation is not love. We shouldn't idolize it so much. The real feeling that arises between people, which is real family happiness, has a completely different nature. It doesn't burn the heart like infatuation does. It doesn't intoxicate or make your head spin. The real feeling is pure. There's faith in the person, depth in relationships, and a feeling that we will always be together. It's a feeling of gratitude, a feeling of understanding that this person didn't come into my life in vain. I want to continue living with this person. This feeling has a calm, pure, bright nature. It doesn't have the nature of passion and burning force. It's calm, pure, joyful, bright, and very deep. An enduring feeling, a pure, calm, enduring feeling towards a loved one. This can exist, but it comes at the price of hard work on one's heart. A person always goes through certain stages in this work. Let's say you were unlucky and couldn't transform infatuation into love, and this can only be done with the help of knowledge. For example, you fell in love, you created a family, you had infatuation, but you didn't trust this infatuation and just cared for each other, helped each other, and still some bitterness appeared. That means that a bitter taste in the relationship will still be there for some time, but it may not be as strong. And then gradually you accept each other, because everyone has to pass the period of acceptance. No one understands anyone right away. Understanding a person comes only through seeing their flaws. When you have already seen that one has such and such flaws, at that moment you can use your inner strength to tell yourself, I will still live with this person. As I told the woman, you won't find a better person for yourself. That's the truth. And she thought, okay, I'll live with this person. This is actually the first stage of love. She passed this first stage called acceptance. This means that she is worthy of love. A person must take this step. A close person always brings suffering at first. When infatuation ends, then comes the period when you feel that it's very difficult. You don't know if you need this person. Maybe I made a mistake, the person thinks. Maybe this is not my person. Something went wrong. People say, we are incompatible. This is not incompatibility, but simply you have seen each other deeper. All people are the same. All people are selfish inside and torment each other. Every single person, absolutely everyone on this earth, there are no selfless people. But there are people who can accept someone else's selfishness only because their batteries are filled with the correct life. So that's the most important thing. Let's say all kinds of psychologists, coaches, what do they teach? I'm not against psychologists and coaches because there are good ones. I'm talking about the fact that most often they just talk about relationships. They say behave like this or behave like that. But all these relationships require strength. If I don't have this strength, I won't be able to behave like this. As the woman tells me, how should I behave with him? I say, you won't be able to behave with him in any way because you don't have enough strength. Just behave with him as you can. Simply fill yourself up, charge your battery. You should understand if a person's battery is not charged, they can't do anything good at all. Therefore, if let's say, I don't pray before the lecture, don't replenish myself, I can't give you anything. I will only be nervous during the lecture. I won't be able to give you anything because I have nothing. We can't always replenish ourselves. Therefore, everything starts with the correct life, my dear friends. Not from the fact that I learned to smile through tears. Everything starts with the correct life. A person must first become strong within themselves, and only then can they give something to a loved one. At the first stage, to become strong, it's better to learn to keep a distance. This is a very important aspect of relationships in general. People ask me, Dr. Torsunov, you say not to divorce? Does this mean I have to suffer with this person all my life? I didn't say that you have to suffer. On the contrary, I say that you should never suffer with a loved one. Suffering means expecting too much from them. Detach yourself from them, and you'll feel better. Once in a holy place, my wife and I had a little disagreement. Well, I won't say it was a big disagreement because you might think Dr. Torsunov can't have a big disagreement with his wife. That's just awful. He gives lectures. It shouldn't be like that at all. And we were walking through this holy place. There were beautiful fields, flowers. We were going to bathe in the Ganges, not talking because we had quarreled, and I noticed that we were still walking side by side. We could have walked a little further from each other, and it would have been calmer, but we still were walking side by side and were not at peace. And at this time we saw two mongooses, such long animals like this. They have such big tails, and they are so fluffy, grayish and beautiful. Those two mongooses were male and female. And they were arguing with each other, snorting at each other and running after each other, and there was so much space around, a huge field. They could have run wider apart. It wasn't necessary to chase each other, and it would have been easier to live, but they were chasing each other because they were strongly attached to each other. And when I saw this, I told my wife, and we laughed so much, and we forgot about the problems. Just understand this thing. The main problem is that we are so strongly bound by our desire for happiness from a loved one that we will fight to the end. There's so much around, there are many friends, and there's God and nature. We'll go out for a walk, feed the birds. The first thing a person should be able to do in relationships is to distract themselves from their loved one. This is very important because if a person doesn't do this, then relationships become exhausted. Insufficiency arises in them. And when they're exhausted, I begin to expect happiness from my loved one and say, well, look what you've done to me. They reply, no, it's you who has done this to me. And this will never end, because this world is arranged in such a way that what a woman considers happiness is an asceticism practice for a man. And what a man considers happiness is an asceticism practice for a woman. And to perform asceticism practice, you need strength. But there's no strength, it's all been used up, because we're constantly expecting happiness from each other. Stop expecting, find happiness somewhere else. Try to distract yourselves from each other somehow. Pray. Live a healthy lifestyle, help other people, care for everyone, expand your view of life, feed your friends, take care of birds, take care of your parents. Try to do something to break free from this dependency. Otherwise, you'll burn out in it. You'll burn out in this expectation of happiness from each other. You'll simply go crazy. When people distance themselves from each other even a little, they calm down, and it becomes easier for them to live. Distance doesn't mean hating your loved one and not paying attention to them, not talking to them. Distance means not expecting. Learn to expect more from God. When you go out into nature, it always gives you only happiness and health. Always. If you go to friends, they always give you happiness and health. When you go to a temple, they always give you happiness and health. You never suffer there. But if a person expects something from a loved one, that's where the suffering lies. That's where the suffering is. You should only give to a loved one. Giving means, for instance, you've cooked something and that's it. Don't expect anything. Whether they praise it or not, it doesn't matter. And this is basically impossible because when you've cooked something, you still want gratitude. Otherwise, it's impossible to live. Therefore, the scriptures give a very deep secret in relationships. If a woman cooks and she thinks, I'm cooking for God, and the husband will eat what has already been blessed, that means she expects gratitude from God because she wants to satisfy God with her service. And then she thinks about God and receives satisfaction in her heart. When a person thinks about God, immediately they receive a feeling of calmness and depth in their heart. That means she has already received from God what she should have received. She received it and she felt, I prepared food for God and want to feed it to my husband because this is my duty to God to feed my husband. This is my duty to God. And what will happen next? If the husband doesn't praise her, she still won't be offended because she has fulfilled her duty to God and felt happiness from it. That means that a person loves God first and foremost and then their loved one. This is the correct position in life. When it's like this, your heart is very strong in relationships. Because if a loved one hurts you, you have someone to turn to. You rely on God, not on your loved one. But love for the loved one also exists. It's there. But it's not so strong that you can rely on it like you can rely on your faith, because truly only faith gives real love to a person. There's a concept of faithfulness, right? If there's faithfulness, there's love. Faithfulness to a loved one is a foundation. Let's say a loved one cheated on you. You can't love them the same way anymore, rely on them in life. You can't because they betrayed you. Do you know about this or not? Nowadays, many people think we should live a free life. If I like to have sex with someone else, it doesn't mean I betray you. It's just my understanding of love. Such understandings of love must not exist, because if you go to sleep with someone else, nothing bright will arise in your loved one's heart in this case. That means that they will simply feel that there's some kind of deception, that there's no depth in the relationship, there's just betrayal, some kind of deceit. But even in this case, you shouldn't leave your loved one. You should know that if a true feeling, true faithfulness has developed between you, there will never be infidelity. It's simply impossible. And if a true feeling hasn't arisen between you, then there's no point in expecting faithfulness, because anything can happen at any moment. Let's try to understand what a true feeling is. Let's say you live with a loved one. You have children. You're raising them together. You have some aspirations to improve your life, to have a good apartment, to have good relationships with everyone, for everything to be good. Is this a basis for faithfulness or not? What do you think? No, because there are different periods in life. There comes a period that simply pushes your loved one away from you. You live together the same way as before, but they suddenly tell you, listen, I don't feel love for you anymore. They say it sincerely. You reply, come on, everything's fine. Don't you feel it? We're doing well. They say, well, I don't feel it. And you reply, no, we're doing fine. And then the person stops talking about it because their loved one doesn't understand them. A bad period comes and pushes them away. It pushes away the person's heart. They don't feel love, and that's it. They live with their loved one, but there's no love. Raise your hand if this happened to you. There you go, you understand? And this bad period will end in your life. Do you think it will last forever? This is where the mistake lies. People don't know that these things come like waves. This bad period in your life became so obvious about 3 months ago, and not so obvious it was about 7 months ago. Isn't that right? Yes, and it will end in 5.5 months. And all people have such periods in life, and for some, they last even longer. A person doesn't feel anything good from their loved one, doesn't feel happiness. They think, that's it, I need to leave, because I can't live like this for the rest of my life. Because they don't know that it always comes like waves. You had a strong feeling for this person and it passed, and you will have this strong feeling again. According to your fate, in about 2.5 years, a strong feeling will appear again. You understand? You don't understand. Wonderful. I understand that you don't understand, because that's how life is structured. It's very difficult for people to understand that you need to live with a person from whom you don't feel anything. So you should understand that this is the test of fate. Those feelings for a person are not anything serious in this life at all, because this is infatuation. And in order to have a real feeling for a person that will never pass, you must go through 3 stages. The first stage is acceptance. The second stage, you take care of the person, and they develop gratitude. They say, I'm grateful to fate that I have you. That's what my wife told me in life. I know what it's like. That means gratitude came from a loved one. And at this time, you begin to feel their purity. At first, you just took care out of a sense of duty, because you believed that's how it should be. The elders said, live like this, and you do it. Then suddenly gratitude came, and you begin to feel the soul, the purity in this person. There is purity in every person. You think, God, there's so much purity in this person. And then the third stage comes, faithfulness sets in. And this is a very high level of relationship, and at this stage people never leave each other. Even if infatuation 1,000 times stronger than love arises, a person will never exchange true love for infatuation, because they see that infatuation is just a flash. But love is very deep, pure, and bright, and you'll never exchange it for infatuation, never. So true love means connection in sound. That means I hear the person. They're telling me something. I say, yes, my dear, I understood everything, although I didn't understand anything at all. It's very difficult for a man to understand a woman, but at least I understood that I need to try to understand. This is where the wisdom of a man lies. I say, yes, I understand that everything is difficult there. I will try to do everything as you say. She says, are you sure you understood? I say, of course I really understood. She doubts, because after all, the life experience is different. Then she calms down and says, thank you for understanding me, thank you. And only later, after some time, I really understood. At first I just strived for it, because I supported the person. And then I realized that it really was so, that this support was needed at that time. Sometimes a loved one does extraordinary things, and it seems, what's there to understand? It's not right to behave like this at all. But then you understand why and forgive, and the loved one becomes grateful. For example, it's wrong for a man to be categorical in relationships with a woman, so harsh, strict. But when you understand why he behaves this way, then it becomes easier for you. People lack knowledge in life, and the first knowledge that must be gained is that what is happiness for a woman is asceticism practice for a man. When a man comes home from work, a woman says, let's go, I'll tell you something. For a woman, happiness is a very close relationship in which you can tell your husband everything you want. And at first you want to tell him not very good things. And the husband says, listen, maybe tomorrow? I'm tired today. You think, how can I live with this person? I want a close relationship with him. And he doesn't even want to listen. And you call your friend and say, he doesn't want to listen to me. And she replies, I understand you. Because for a friend, it's not asceticism practice at all. On the contrary, a woman's emotions are happiness for her friend. Female emotions are generally difficult for a man to endure. Ladies, if you want to have a heart-to-heart talk with your husband, don't immediately tell him heavy stuff, okay? And don't speak to him too emotionally. If you want to strongly express your thoughts, express it about 10 times less intensely, and then it will be easier for him. He'll say, yes, yes, yes. Be careful with him, not too emotional, because his heart is weak to deal with emotions. It's very difficult for a man to accept them from a woman. A woman has a strong heart for emotions. She's like a volcano burning. Here in the heart, a volcano of emotions is burning. As in the song, the heart perishes in the fire-breathing lava of love. That's how a woman sings. So she has a fire-breathing lava of love. There are a lot of emotions there. A huge power is in a woman's heart. Men have a hole there. It's a very weak area. A man sees a woman, and as in the song, with an easy gait, you came out of paradise and disappeared from sight. Female energy strongly affects the heart. It can affect both positively and negatively. Therefore, a woman thinks that she should always feel harmony with a man, talk to him, and communicate like this. But it's difficult for him. The most important thing is that she doesn't know about this. She thinks that they simply have incompatibility with the man. It's difficult for any man to communicate so emotionally. A man really wants a woman to support him. And he starts to expound to her the rhetoric of his belief in life. He has some goal in life, some understanding. And he starts to expound this rhetoric to her. Here a man has a very strong rhetorical power. When a man tells a woman about his vision of something, he expects admiration from her, that she will look into his face and exclaim, yes, yes, you're right. But a woman has a hole here. She's a very sensitive person in terms of communication. And it's very difficult for her to listen. Very difficult. She thinks, Lord, when will he be quiet? I already don't understand anything he's saying. Is that right, ladies? It is. Men think that maybe I'm making this up. No, it's actually true. She seems to agree, but she's saying, listen, make it shorter. And it's very difficult for a woman to agree with her man. And the reason is that she has such a trait by nature. She sees all the flaws in her husband and can never forget them. Of course, this sometimes helps a woman in life. For example, if a man suddenly unexpectedly notices a flaw in his wife, he tells her, well, I didn't expect that. And then she uses her memory records like a weapon against him. And she says, and yesterday and last year and 5 years ago. The husband says, I get it, that's enough. You see how different we are. And therefore you shouldn't expect too much from a close person, because everything that is happiness for you ladies is asceticism practice for men. And everything that is happiness for men is asceticism practice for women. For example, obedience. Women are not obedient by nature. It's very difficult for her to obey her husband because she only obeys love. And a man, let's say, can start speaking very strictly, and this outrages women. She can't accept this intonation at all. She's not against the meaning of his phrase, but for her at that moment the meaning is insignificant. Because for a woman, relationships are the most important, not what meaning is embedded in it. For example, a woman is listening to a lecture. If you ask her, did you like the lecture? And she'll answer, great, I really liked it. And what was the lecture about? I can't say right now, She'll answer. A woman listens to relationships. She listens, this is true and this is true, but what is true she has already forgotten. It's all true. When a man listens to a lecture, it's important to him that everything is said correctly, and he'll say, this part was correct, but this part wasn't quite. Because a man listens to get some experience, he needs practical advice from the lecture. And a woman is filled with purity. That means if it's correct, she listens to all of it and then lives according to what she heard. The psyche of a man and a woman is arranged completely differently, absolutely differently. If a woman hears her husband speaking rudely to her, she will never agree with it. But if a man speaks very gently, she will always agree with it. However, if a man is irritated and wants to say something to his wife, he will never say it gently because he's irritated, and this means he just needs to be quiet and step aside. This is what the asceticism practice of love is about. Let's say you're irritated, your wife did something wrong, don't tell her anything, because it will only get worse. She will never accept your irritated words because a woman in general cannot internalize an irritated tone of a man, just can't. And that's it, and a scandal begins. Because she doesn't agree with the tone you're using to address her, and the truth itself that you want to convey to her is insignificant. If a woman is irritated by something, she approaches her husband and wants to tell him her feelings about it. And if she is offended, the man can't accept her feelings because men have problems with feelings. You need to tell him everything kindly and gently, and then he will accept it. Speak affectionately. Please put your dirty socks right here. And he will hear it, but he won't be able to put the socks there. And the reason is that a man is very constrained in his life. Let's say a woman goes from point A to point B, from the kitchen to the bedroom. And on the way, she sees everything that's happening around. And while going from point A to point B, she can fix everything. She goes along the way, she cleans up here, cleans up there. She knows she's going to the bedroom. But on the way, she tidies everything up, arranges everything so that everything is nice. When a man goes from point A to point B, that is, from the kitchen to the bedroom, he sees only the final destination, nothing more. And he won't even tell you what was on the way. For example, if a man likes his wife's eyes, he will look directly into her eyes, and he won't say what dress she's wearing. A woman is surprised she has put on a new dress, and he tells her a week later, "Oh, what a beautiful dress you have." This happened to me with my wife. To make her happy, I always try to notice what outfits my wife wears. So once I tried to make her happy, I told her, "What a beautiful dress you are wearing." She said, "I've been wearing it for a week already." I really didn't notice it somehow, it slipped my mind. Because a man's consciousness is very focused, it's very difficult for him to distinguish small details. Because he is very goal-oriented in general, a man's psyche is strongly goal-oriented. And in order to get a man involved in family life when he comes home from work, several stages are needed. First, you need to hug him, then take him to the shower, then sit him down to eat, and only then will he see you. Usually you want him to see you right away. But he can't because he's still at work at this time. His mind is there. He hasn't come home yet. His male psyche is very narrowly focused. He needs time to see his wife. First hug him, and this will relax him a little. Try to feel him when you're hugging him. Hold him. You'll feel when it's okay to let go. And if he's still tense, continue hugging. It will be better for you because if you don't hug him when he comes from work, what will he do? He will tell you some truths because he's tense, but if you hug him right away, he'll relax immediately. Then you can take him to the shower because if he doesn't wash to release the tension, things won't go well further. Then after the shower, you need to take him to eat, feed him, because when you feed him, a kind of reset happens. It's like a series of resets, you understand? That means after he eats, everything becomes different, and then you can very gently and kindly say something about the socks. But ladies, you'll have to tell him many times. I'll tell you now how my wife taught me to turn off the light in the bathroom. You see, a woman's psyche always has some projects. My wife learned somewhere, I don't know where, I don't think I ever talked about it, that if we don't turn off the light, then we waste our devoutness. As a result, we have less happiness in life because we waste God's energy. She heard all this and started living by it. Well, naturally, she always turns off the light herself if she lives by this principle. And who doesn't turn it off? The husband. So what happened? I didn't even know that I so often don't turn off the light in the bathroom. I thought I was doing fine, but she kept saying, "You need to turn off the light." At first, she just kept telling me this. I was okay, and time after time, I forgot to switch it off. Well, I'm a good person, you understand? I understand everything, that I'm a man, I tried my best. And then she said, "Go turn it off now." I went, turned off the light. Meanwhile, I was counting how many times she'd have to tell me that before I started turning off the bathroom light. Because to turn off the light, I need to exit the bathroom, close the door, and by that time I already have another goal, you see. I forget about the bathroom because I have great things to do. I'm going to do important things. And here's some bathroom light, really. That's how a man's psyche works. She probably told me about 50 times over several months. And that's what happened one day. I left the bathroom and went to do great things. On the way, I remembered that I needed to turn off the light in the bathroom, and when I came back, I saw that the bathroom light was off. I went to my wife and said, "Thank you." She said, "I didn't turn it off. This means that I turned it off myself." And after that, I always turned off the light in the bathroom, but mostly didn't remember doing it. You understand how it is with a man? First he doesn't turn it off and doesn't remember, and then he turns it off and doesn't remember. But for him to remember that he needs to turn off the light in the bathroom, it's just unrealistic, ladies. So you should continue telling him until this conditioned or unconditioned reflex develops, I don't know which one, that socks will be there where you want them to be, shoes will be there, the light will be turned off, and so on. You just need to repeat, continue doing this. Let's say you ask your husband, "Please say thank you when you finish eating." He'll say, "Okay." If you say it kindly, he'll say okay, and won't say thank you this time. Don't be surprised. God, he promised. What's going on? Don't think he's playing with you, and don't think that he's doing this on purpose. He's just a man, because when he ate at that time, he remembered about his important things. Right after a meal, as soon as a man feels full, he immediately remembers his tasks. Well, obviously, thank you is not one of them. What nonsense is this, thank you? Of course, I'm grateful to you for the meal. What does thank you have to do with it? A woman doesn't understand this gratitude until it's verbally expressed. If a man really wants, and if one of his great tasks is simply to make his wife happy, then he starts doing all this by himself. That means he eats and thinks, "I need to say thank you. I need to say thank you." When he's finished eating, he says thank you. Wife says, "You're welcome." She is content and happy. It's very important for a man to understand these things. If he doesn't do this in the family, his wife can't be happy because she lives for relationships. This manifests in everything in women. For example, when a woman eats, she builds a relationship with food. When she communicates, she builds relationships with people, while a man communicates for a purpose. A woman communicates for relationships, while a man communicates for something specific. For example, when a woman eats, she doesn't eat, she tastes. Have you noticed how women eat? They take a small bite, taste it. If it's not tasty, she won't eat it at all, whether it's healthy or not, because she tastes food, and some foods she doesn't want to taste. She's tasted something, got satisfied with this flavor, then she tastes something else. But a man doesn't taste, he devours, because he needs to feel it here, to feel full and strong. When you ask, "Was it tasty?" it's very difficult for him to answer. He'll say, "You fed me well, good job." That means it was plenty, filling, and good. In other words, a man eats with his stomach, he needs to get full, while a woman needs to taste enough to be filled with flavors, because the energy of taste is the energy of love, and the energy of food's quantity is the energy of strength. A man needs strength from food, while a woman needs love, because she gives love. That's why she's always tasting. Of course, she can taste a lot if she likes something. So, ladies, how does a man eat? He eats a little of everything to keep it harmonious. And how does a woman eat? If she likes something, she starts eating a lot of it, until she's full, satisfied with the taste, then she can eat everything else in small portions. So if it's arranged this way, don't try to change anything about it. That means each person has their own nature. A woman simply cannot wear clothes that she doesn't like, because she'll go crazy from this. She needs to wear what suits her. But a man wears what his wife gave him. That suits him just fine. We are all completely different. So, rule number 1, don't think that your close person feels happiness the same way you do. Don't assume that if you feel that doing something brings happiness, the other person feels the same. Often, the opposite is true. What brings you joy might be difficult for them, and what you find difficult may bring them happiness. In relationships, true happiness between a man and a woman is unattainable without mutual understanding. A man should know what to do for a woman to make her happy, and vice versa. Women, it's very simple. You just mechanically agree with him and he's happy. If he says something, respond with, "Yes, my dear, yes." Ladies, try it. It works. And it doesn't matter if you agree or not. What matters to him is knowing you're devoted to him. If you ask him, "Is my opinion important to you?" I'll tell you honestly, women, you don't need to ask. Your opinion is not important to him. What's important to a man is your devotion. If you show him your devotion, he is very satisfied with you. And after that, you can express your doubts, but you need to speak to a man very carefully. You might say, "There's an opinion that perhaps..." He'll likely respond, "No, it can't be like that," but he'll take it in. If you told him this very gently, chances are he will do as you said. Because men usually respond in the same way. At first they strongly resist, then they start to reflect, and eventually they make a decision. But a woman senses the truth right away. A man, however, can't feel it immediately. He needs time. It's important to understand this. If you bluntly tell a man, "No, that's wrong," he will react strongly. Do you know what I mean by react? It means any further discussion becomes pointless. So you shouldn't provoke this reaction in a man. If he has a deep conviction, let's say he truly believes that the best thing in life is to be a train conductor, never disappoint him, ladies. Never suggest he should have a different profession. By doing so, you disrupt his psyche and hurt his heart. He may think, "My wife doesn't understand me. Why am I even with her?" Simply agree. Of course, being a conductor is the best for you. This will calm and reassure him. If a man has an idea in his heart, don't argue with him. It's unwise. It's the same as telling a woman that she isn't very beautiful. That's sheer foolishness. A wife is, of course, the most beautiful. She may know she's not, but her husband shouldn't. That's how wives feel. Isn't that right, ladies? Or does anyone think they aren't the most beautiful to their husband? Raise your hand if you think you're not. No one? Good, that's how it should be. So a man should always praise a woman's beauty. It means a lot to her. She lives for that recognition. Compliment her. Even if you think she's not the most beautiful, don't say it or focus on it. If you acknowledge her beauty, she will appear more beautiful. The more a woman feels appreciated for her beauty, the more beautiful she becomes. That's how women's psychology works. Similarly, the more you encourage a man by saying, "Well done, you're doing great," the stronger he becomes. He can overcome challenges and even move mountains if supported. But you see, now we come to an interesting thing. I want to ask you one question, a very important one. What's more important in relationships, in family relationships, truth or support? Of course, support is more important. And here's a second question. Does your truth really matter to your loved one? No, it doesn't. Remember, your loved one only needs your support. This applies to both men and women. If you always support your loved one, then one day they may ask for your truth. They might say, "You always support me. Thank you. Now tell me what you really think." And at that moment, your truth will truly benefit them. Ladies, understand this. Support comes first. If you consistently encourage your husband saying, "Good job, keep going," then eventually you can share your truth with him. Let's move on. After that, you can tell him the truth and say, "Of course, it would be better if you did it this way." He will accept it, though it may weigh heavily on his heart. He will take it in, and it will help him in life. A husband is an irreplaceable gift for a woman. A husband helps a woman see things clearly, especially when she becomes intensely passionate about something and risks losing herself in it. A husband brings her back to reality, provided she trusts him. And a wife is an invaluable gift for a man. Men have a tendency to sometimes make decisions that can ruin their lives. A wife senses this and always tells him so. If she has always supported him and behaved in a way that has never disappointed him, he will hear her words and be saved. For men, trouble often arises precisely in the area where they feel most confident. Recently, I had a similar experience. I generally lead a healthy lifestyle, exercise, and rarely get sick. However, I started experiencing spasms in my left eye that were gradually getting worse. I recognized them as spasms and was familiar with my body, so I assumed it was simply fatigue. I wasn't planning on seeing a doctor. I thought I knew what was happening, but then my vision in that eye started to blur. Noticing that my left eye was seeing less clearly than my right, I mentioned it to my wife. She immediately said, "Let's go see an eye specialist." I told her, "I don't need a doctor. I know it's just spasms." But she insisted. She kept urging me, and finally I went, honestly just to avoid upsetting her. It wasn't that I felt I needed a doctor. I only went because she wanted me to. When I went, the doctor, a respected professor, measured the pressure in my eye and found it was very high. He diagnosed me with glaucoma and said that if I had lived with this for a few more months, I would have started to have retinal detachment. Can you imagine? He prescribed eye drops and told me that I'd need to use them for the rest of my life, like insulin for a diabetic. I asked him about other treatments like reflexology or herbal options. He dismissed them, saying, "Toys, those are myths. Only the drops will help." He was an esteemed professor. When I got home, here's where a man's mindset comes into play. I used the drops once, and I really didn't like how my eye felt. The eye felt strange. I sat down and prayed. Gradually, I found pressure points that affect eye spasms. I identified the area where the spasms were originating. These spasms prevent fluid from draining properly from the eye, which raises the pressure. I located the points responsible. Then I found points on the ears that relieved these spasms, and later discovered certain seeds. Everything is in meditation, in prayer, and then I placed the seeds, and that was it. Goodbye. My eye pressure has never risen again, but I always carry seeds in my ears. When the bad period ends, my vision will be good again. Sometimes a bad period can catch a person and give them some illness, even with a healthy lifestyle, but the bad period passes and everything returns to normal. So, what did I tell you? I told you that if I hadn't listened to my wife, I would have gone blind in one eye. Can you imagine what a danger that was? There were spasms just as I thought, but she saw it differently. She saw it as a bigger danger than I did, and as a result, she saved my eye. So now everything is fine. I keep it under control. What's the point? Sometimes a man doesn't see or recognize the danger, but a woman can clearly see it. In these cases, a woman must insist. Women, do you hear me? Insist. Demand that the man follow her wishes, because a woman experiences 3 stages of illness. The first stage is sick, the second is very sick, and the third is a widow. Do you understand what widow means? It means the husband is dead. This is a Jewish joke, a Jewish anecdote. In other words, men never get sick. They only get sick in intensive care. This is how a man's psyche works. On to victory. He just ignores illness. Therefore, a woman is the heart of her husband, and the man is the reason for his wife. He is the will, the sobriety, the calmness, the sensibility of his wife. A woman is naturally restless, while a man is calm. He says, everything will be fine. This is how the male mind works. That's why we are irreplaceable for each other. We must value this greatly. We need to understand that this is how it is. Learn to cooperate with each other. This is very important. Did you hear that, men? This is how you should always behave with your wife. Don't be sad. That means that you should always calm women down, encourage them, because the greatest difficulty in a woman's life is the feeling of danger, fear, and worry, which are always in her heart. They constantly suffocate a woman's psyche. All women experience this. If a man and a man's psyche is the opposite, very stable, firm, when he behaves like this, constantly calming his wife, constantly reassuring her, she will be very happy next to him, very happy. Women, do you agree or not? You agree? But many men don't know about this. This is how a man should behave. And a woman, as we already sang, should behave like this. I will melt, like him, a piece of ice with my hot heart. You call me, and I will come. I can't do otherwise. In other words, she must be active in love, take care, try, and so on. That's how the power of love works. So what were we talking about? We were talking about how people mostly live according to the same pattern. They believe in infatuation, they experience it, they find each other, and then when this infatuation fades, when a bad period comes, one of them, usually the man, thinks, that's it. There's no happiness in life anymore. And people separate. This is why we have 80% of divorces in families. So rule number 1, being in love is not the foundation of life. If it's not there, or if the feeling of something good from the person is gone, it doesn't mean there will be no love. Because a good feeling from a loved one is something that comes and goes, and it can completely disappear. Love is something entirely different. When I accept a loved one, living with them becomes calm for me. That's the first drop of love. The second drop of love, I start caring for the person properly, without expecting anything in return. They become grateful because gratitude comes from God to their heart. When you live for God, striving to please God, living close to a loved one, then God gives you this gratitude from their heart. And whether the person wants it or not, they will have to be grateful. And when they become grateful, their ears open. And when their ears open, you can teach them. You can tell them the truth, and they will hear it. This is the second stage of love. The third stage of love is called fidelity. Like in the song, we are an echo. We are a long echo of each other. Well, that means people hear each other deeply, understand each other deeply, and don't want to separate because they understand that this is the best thing that can happen in my life. This is true love. It never fades. It doesn't depend on astrology or horoscopes. It doesn't depend on the periods of life, because this is true love. It's woven from your efforts and your freedom of choice, not from the circumstances of life. This is what a person should strive for throughout their life. If you say, I can't live with this person, it means you've already accumulated dirt in the relationship. If it's completely unbearable, if you can't stand living together, separate, start praying. First bring peace to your heart, then restore the connection. Feel that you can communicate with this person, and then their heart will change through your prayer. You should always try to restore relationships even if they've become damaged. And this is possible. It's just a matter of the amount of work required. You pray and this dirt will go away. The thread between you becomes clean and bright. And all this is possible. Some people say, yes, when will it happen? Dr. Torsunov, tell me, how long to wait? You don't need to wait. How long should you wait for the kitchen to become clean? It will never clean itself. You have to wash it to make it clean. In the same way, relationships are cleaned with prayer. Start praying. Or if you say, I don't know how to pray. Well, a woman says, I pray, but nothing changes. Fine, there are other ways. You can go serve at a temple and in your heart say, this is for the relationships to improve. Say this to the Lord, and He will send it there. You've served in the temple. You've taken care of everyone. Or go feed homeless children, orphaned children. A girl came up to me. She said, I have children without parents, so she cares for them. She has such a pure look, such a clean gaze. She's a very good person. How can I help them? Abandoned children with cerebral palsy. How can I help them? I can't do this or that for them because they're without parents. I will take care of them. This girl approached me yesterday after the lecture, and she has a pure gaze. Why? Because God is very pleased with her as a person. She is doing service for these children, and 100% everything will be good in her life. Therefore, a person should overcome their fate by doing good deeds. The best thing is to think about holiness. That's prayer. Serving in the temple is also good. Serving people is good. And even if you just run through nature and wish happiness to everyone, rejoice in the birds, even that will fill you with the energy of happiness, which will help remove bad connections with loved ones. Even this helps. Let's move on. We have 10 minutes left. Who among you felt yesterday after our attunement, when we listened to the prayer, repeated it with their attitude, that calmness appeared in your heart? Raise your hand. Who reached this state? This means fulfillment. You see, calmness means fulfillment. This is what we should always expect. Who among you felt that at first you listened to the prayer and liked it as a process itself, then you felt support, as if it became good to repeat, I wish happiness to everyone strongly? Raise your hand. Who felt this? This means that your intelligence is overcoming fate. It turned on at this moment when you felt support. The activation of intelligence occurred. And who among you felt while wishing happiness to everyone that suddenly your heart opened? This means activation, entering into a relationship with fate. When you suddenly entered into a relationship with fate, you entered because there was enough happiness when you were doing all this. The energy of happiness started flowing. It opened your fate to you because fate always accepts happiness, and this happiness takes a person away from prayer. That means it becomes so good for them that they no longer think about the prayer itself. At this moment, when the heart opens, you need to force yourself through your sound, I wish happiness to everyone, to give all this away. And still repeating, I wish happiness to everyone, is our training, because at home you should repeat your prayer in your faith and also listen to the voice of the holy person in your faith, and this way you can overcome fate. So I wish happiness to everyone should be repeated only by those who have nothing else, nothing to repeat. This is also good. It's a good affirmation, but you should strive to find a prayer in which you will address God. Our task is to listen intently to those who pray and try to repeat in their mood. At this moment, the memory of spiritual life is activated through someone. It always happens through other people first. If someone is in a hurry, you can leave right now. Don't be shy. Thank you very much. I wish you all happiness, love, spiritual knowledge, and all the brightest things in your fate. I am very grateful to you for listening to me all this time, for your attention. To learn more on the subject of health and healing of the body, please make sure to read my health guide, available for download on my YouTube channel or on my Instagram page. Thank you very much, and see you soon.